and Happy New Year! Welcome to the Stitch Sessions. You're starting your year off on the right foot, indeed, if you are looking for something new to crochet. The holidays are over and we're getting into a brand new year and a brand new month. So those of you that saw my last video, I showed you a sneak peek of what the crochet series is going to be for 2025. Now, if you didn't watch that video and you are new here, every year I work on a themed crochet series. And so some people work on calendar blankets. I like to do themed series. So last year's series was Home Sweet Home, and we crocheted all kinds of projects to do with the home. And in fact, I'll leave a link to the playlist in the description box down below. So for this year's theme, our theme is hats all, folks. And it's all to do with different types of hats that you can crochet. So at the beginning of every month, so the first Wednesday of every month, you're going to see a brand new hat tutorial that will coincide with that month. So for the month of January, we are crocheting this really adorable little cowled hood. Okay, so it's got a kind of built-in cowl with it, and it's just so perfect. You can make this for any age, any size. The one that you see here, I made for a toddler. I know it looks kind of big, but she is quickly growing. So I think you're really, really going to enjoy it. It's just worked nice and easy back and forth. So we created the collar using slip stitches worked into the back loops. And then we worked around and we used a fabulous stitch called the half double crochet slip stitch to go back and forth to create the hood portion. And it just creates this beautiful like ribbed-like effect, which I think you're really, really going to love. And then once we reach the top, we just slip stitched to seam up the top. And I ended up adding one little extra finishing round here just to give the opening a nice little clean finished edge. But the pattern works up nicely. You don't need to do this, but I'm just kind of funny that way. I like to have a nice clean finished edge there. And then I added a fun little pom-pom, which I don't go through in the tutorial because I've got a specific tutorial just about pom-poms. It is linked in the description box down below, and I talk about it later on in the tutorial. And so there you have it. Now, like I said, I made mine for a toddler. So my niece is just a little over 2 years old, and I'm really excited about gifting it to her. She's going to look absolutely adorable in this. And so the cowled hood can be worn a variety of different ways. And so I like the idea of the cowl to the hood because then you can tuck it inside your coat and it prevents any extra wind from getting in. And I don't know about you, but I don't like it when I get a lot of cold air around my neck. It's just asking for a cold to come on. So you can wear it this way. Now you can also turn it up. Like if you've got a high collar on your coat and you want it to kind of create more of like a cowl or a scarf-like effect, you can turn it up this way. And that way, it can also protect your mouth and nose at the same time. And then also, the other way you can do it is you can tuck it inward. Again, if you've got a high collar on your coat, and then the cowl sits on the inside, which I like that look as well. So it's really sharp looking. I've seen a lot of these done in adult sizes that look very, very sharp, right? Now, I added a little pom-pom to mine. You don't have to add a pom-pom. I just think it's super, super fun. So all kinds of different ways that you can wear this. And I think you're going to be really shocked at the simplicity of how to create this design. So if you are excited about the very first hat project, then let's dive right in. Okay, so here is the yarn I'm going to be using for this cowled hood, and it's Loops and Threads Carousel Twist acrylic yarn. And this comes in a ball of 195 meters. And this comes in a ball of 150 grams, which contains 195 meters or 213 yards. This should be plenty for the hood that I'm creating. I'm doing it for a toddler. I dare say that this would probably be enough for an adult too, but you know what? I always say err on the side of caution. Buy 2 balls, especially if you want to make some matching mittens or something. as part of an ensemble gift, then I would definitely get a second skein. So that is the yarn I'm using. It is considered a bulky number 5, and oddly enough, they're only asking you to use a 5.5 millimeter hook. But I am going to be using a 6 millimeter hook, which is also known as a J or a 10. And in general, you guys know that I usually size up my hooks depending on the project that I want to do. So I'm going to use a 6 millimeter for this project. And just make sure you have a good pair of scissors on hand and a yarn needle to weave in your ends. And remember that a yarn needle is larger than a thread needle. Once you've got those materials together, we're ready to start stitching. Okay, so we are going to start here. Oh, by the way, if you were curious about this colorway, I believe it's called Birthday Cake. So really fun color, lots of colors in there. Okay, so we're going to begin by placing a slip knot on our hook. And I am going to chain up 21. So this is going to be the height of our cowl. And I want to be able to fold it over. Now, again, I'm doing mine for a toddler. She's about 2.5. So this is going to give me approximately 6 inches or 15-ish centimeters. And I want to be able to fold it down, give or take. If you're doing this maybe for a younger child, I would probably do maybe 12 stitches. If you're doing it for a young adult, like a teen, I would say a teen to an adult, I would do that the same. I would probably stitch up anywhere between 50 to 60 chains if you're doing it for a teen up to an adult, because I think they're relatively going to wear the same size because it's meant to stretch and go over the head. So I'm doing mine for a toddler. I'm doing 21 chains. If you're doing it for a younger child, I would probably maybe do anywhere between 10 to 12 chains. I just like an even number. So here I'm going to do 20 plus 1 for a turning chain. If I were doing this for myself or any other young adult or adult, I would do anywhere between 50 chains plus 1 or 60 chains plus 1. Again, it depends on how kind of nice and cushy and bulky you want that fold over part to be. Okay, so that was a long-winded explanation, but I know many of you are going to ask me about the differences in sizes. So I'm doing mine for a toddler. I'm going to chain up 20 plus 1 chain. Okay, so once you have your chain, what we're going to do now is we're going to work slip stitches into our chains. And this is what you're going to do for the bulk of this cowl section. Okay, so nice and easy, really monotonous. You can put on your favorite show and just go to town. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the second chain from the hook. Remember, we never count the loop that's on the hook. So I'm going to go 1 and 2, and into that chain, I'm going to slip stitch. But what I'm going to do for this very first row is I'm going to turn my work over and work into the back bumps. And I just do that every once in a while because I like the finished look of this edge. So I'm just going to turn it over, and that is the back bump right there. And I'm just going to insert my hook and slip stitch. So I'm going to pull it through and then pull it through again. And that is what I'm going to do all the way to the end of my chain. So here's the next bump. And I'm just going to pull it through and pull it through. Try not to be too tight so that it stays nice and relaxed. We want this to have a nice cushy look and feel. Now, if you're finding it kind of persnickety to kind of hold and find those back bumps, you can absolutely go in through the chain. Okay, no problem at all. So just go ahead and do that. You are absolutely fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue into the back bumps. And then once you get to the end of your row 1, you will have 20 chains. So the 1 is just to kind of help you turn. And I just like to do things in even numbers for nice, easy projects like that. Okay, so go ahead and do that all the way to the end. Okay, so I'm at the end of row 1. I've got 20 chains. And now all we're going to do, we're going to just continue repeating row number 1 for rows and rows. So when you come to the end, you will chain 1, you will turn your work, and you're going to go into the very first stitch, which is right here, and you're always going to pick up that back loop of the slip stitch. And then you're just going to continue slip stitching. And that chain one just gives it a little bit of a chance to relax and sit nice and easy on the edge there. And then again, I find the back loop of the next slip stitch and keep it relaxed, remember. So the back loop is the loop that's furthest away from you. This would be the front loop. So I'm going to go in through the back loop and slip stitch. And that's basically it. So you're going to just continue to slip stitch one into each all the way to the end. Then you chain one, turn your work, and repeat. So you should always end up with 20 stitches. So if you're doing it with the same size that I am, which is for a toddler, then you should always end up with 20 stitches. Now the next question you're probably going to ask is, well, how many rows do I do? So see, it just has a nice little effect like that and is so nice and cushy. I love it. Okay, now one thing I should have actually mentioned during the materials portion is that you should download the hat sizing chart on the Crochet Crafty website. I'll make sure to leave a link for it down below. And what you're going to look for is you're going to look for the head circumference of the size you're making it for. So the head circumference is measured this way. And so I'm doing mine for 12 to 24 months or 2 to 3 years. I mean, they're almost interchangeable. So I want this cowl portion to make sure that it can fit comfortably over the person's head. So that is why I'm going to find my head circumference. And so for the toddler, you want to do anywhere between 18 and 19 inches or between 46 and 48.5 centimeters. So if you download this chart, it's absolutely free. You can print it off. You have the choice of having it in metric or imperial, okay? So I know that my circumference is 18 inches. I'm actually going to take off another inch. I'm going to do 17 inches. Or 43.5 centimeters because I don't want it to be too loose. I do want it to kind of hug around the neck area a little bit. And I also do that with hats as well, just so that they sit nice and snugly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to work my rows back and forth until I create a length that is going to equal 17 centimeters. So once I've done that, I'm going to meet back up with you guys, and then we're going to talk about how we're going to move on from there. Okay, so I have created a length that I think will work, and you can see how much beautiful stretch that has. So mine, I was aiming for 17 inches. Now when I fold it in half, actually I'll just measure it this way, and this is upside down. So mine actually comes out to just about 14 inches, which would be just about 35.5 centimeters. And so because this has a lot of stretch to it, I'm actually going to stop here. And so when you fold it in half, which we're going to do momentarily, you've got this is the neck opening here. Now, I happen to have a shirt handy here of the young person I'm going to be giving this to. So this is a toddler t-shirt, and this is a good way to gauge. So when I fold this in half, you can see, if I just hold it up there, you can see that it fits over the neck opening nicely. And so the main thing is I want it to sit comfortably on the neck, but I just want it to be able to stretch over the head. And that's why I go by the head circumference. Now, if you have something that doesn't have a lot of stretch, then I would definitely try to go to the head circumference so that you can kind of get it over the head. And when it's around the neck, you want it to sit somewhat loosely anyway. So you can see this t-shirt is quite open here. I mean, obviously the toddler's neck is not this thick, but it's designed this way meant to give it to some breathing room. So where the cowl part sits off to the shoulder here, just off the side, I'm pretty happy with that. So what we're going to do now is we are going to close up our cowl into an official cowl. So, and this worked out perfectly because I'm going to work over this tail in just a moment. So what we're going to do now is I'm at the end of this row. I will chain one, and now I'm going to continue to slip stitch, but I'm going to work into the back loop of this stitch, And then I'm going to match up with the corresponding stitch on the other side. So this would have been your foundation chain row. So the first one might be a little tricky to see, so just don't be afraid to turn over your work. So I'm going to go right in through there. That's the first stitch there. And then I'm just going to slip stitch through all 3 of those loops. Whoops. Okay. And then I'm going to go into the next stitch. Same thing, back loop only. And then the front loop of this one here, just like that. So basically I'm going stitch for stitch, and I'm going to slip stitch the sides together. So back loop of this one, and then the front loop of that one. So the front loop just means the loop that's closest to you. Okay. And you're going to do that all the way down. So I had 20 stitches for mine, so it should be 20 stitches all the way up. Just like that. So see, now you can see it's nicely attached. Okay, so now my cowl has been formed. Just like that. Okay, now some people might not like that seam there. It doesn't really bother me. This seam is a little bit more camouflaged. You could also turn it inside out to look this way, which I don't mind actually either, because it looks like a little zipper situation. So you can use whichever side you like. Some people would then snip their yarn off if you don't like a seam at all, and then they would start to work on this side if you want a nice uniform look on the front. So that's totally up to you, but I'm going to do this without cutting my yarn off. So let me just get my bearings here again. Whoops, too many times. So this is how I had it. Now I am going to turn mine this way and leave it like that. I actually don't mind that. It looks kind of neat, in my opinion. And now we're going to work around the sides of these rows to start creating our hood, okay? So I've got this loop here that I'm going to pick up, and at the same time I can work over this tail, which is great. So I know that I have 87 stitches. Now, I know I have 87 rows. Now the slip stitch rows are really, really tight together. So you just have to be careful that it doesn't start to really explode. Although we do want it to fan out a little bit. So some of that is okay. So this first row, we're gonna see how we like it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna chain 1, and I am going to half double crochet into the side of each row. So I'm just going to follow the ridges here. So there's that row there. And I'm going to half double crochet. Just like that. So I'm going to yarn over, and then I find the next row. So basically I have like a ridge and a little dip here. So the next one is I'm going to go into the dip. And what I try and do is I try to pick up more than just one loop, because I don't want any gaps there. So I'm just going to come down a wee bit, work over that tail, and half double crochet. And now the next one, I'm going to work into the more prominent row right there. So basically I'm trying to place one stitch into the edge of every row. So then the next row is right here, because it's the dip row I usually call it. There's a dip and a ridge row. So I'm going to go down into the dip and half double. And then the next row will be a ridge row, because that is the row that's more prominent here. And then I go in through there and half double crochet. And so that's what you're going to do all the way around. So you can see it just creates a nice blending into the ribs. So you're going to go all the way around until you come back to the beginning, and then I'm going to meet up with you there and show you what's going to happen next. Okay, so I have come back around to the beginning here, and I now have actually 85 stitches. So you'll probably lose 1 stitch, sometimes 2 in the seam, and that's totally a-okay. But you can see actually how it's really starting to flare out here, because again, those slip stitch rows are really tight, and the half double crochet has a bit more cushion to it. But this is perfect because we do want it to flare out to be a little bit lax around the head. And I really love how that just blends in so nicely with the ribbing there. Isn't that nice? Okay, so now what's going to happen is we're going to continue working in rows. We're no longer working in rounds. So this is my 85th stitch here, and I'm not slip stitching. So what I'm going to do is every time I come up to the end here, I will chain one and turn my work. And now for the rest of the hood, I'm actually going to be using a half double crochet slip stitch. And it looks like this. So you're going to yarn over, you're going to insert your hook into the back loop only. Now you can work this into the regular stitch, but I prefer the back loop. And you're going to insert into the back loop, so as if you're going to do a regular half double crochet. Then you pull that loop up, but you then continue to pull through the other two stitches. Okay, so again, you're going to yarn over, go into the back loop of the next stitch, pull up a loop. Right? Now, normally with a half double crochet, you'd have 3 loops on your hook. You'd yarn over again, pull through all 3. With this one, let me just do that again. You yarn over, insert your hook, pull that loop up, but then continue to pull it through the next 2 stitches. Okay? So yarn over, insert into the back loops, pull that loop through and through the other 2. Now, I would really recommend, if you are a tight crocheter, that you go up a hook size here, because the idea of this stitch is you want it to be relaxed and nice and cushy. I think it gives a nice, cozy, cushy effect. So if you're crocheting really tightly, it's just going to get kind of really bunched up and stiffen your work. Okay, so I did a few here so you can see the back loops. And then this is the other side here. So see how it creates a really cushy side stitch here. So you've got your stitches on the top and your stitches along the side. And that's going to really create a beautiful horizontal ribbing effect. So that is now what you're going to do all the way around as you did before. So you're going to go all the way around. When you get to this side, you will chain one and turn and come back around. So we're going to continuously go this way and then back, this way and then back. So that will create that nice, beautiful opening that we want for the hood portion. And this is where you're going to want to refer back to your sizing chart. Okay, so we've used the head circumference to create the cowl so that we can kind of stretch the cowl over the head. But now we need to create the hat depth, like how high up we want the hood to be. So again, for my toddler size, I'm going to go to hat depth. And so it's telling me my hat depth is usually about 19 centimeters or 7¼ to 7½ inches. So that depth is from the crown of the head to just around the ear. But remember, for this project, we need it to come down lower to meet up with the cowl portion. So I'm most likely going to add an additional 2 to 3 inches in the depth. So I need 7½ inches. So I'm probably going to make mine about 9½ inches. I might even do a nice even 10 inches. So I'm just going to do rows and rows and rows until I get a height of 10 inches. And then I will seam up the top of the hood, and that is where I'm going to meet up with you guys again. So for now, all you're going to do is you're going to crochet rows, not rounds. So you do not slip stitch. See how there's a gap there? So you don't slip stitch when you come around, chain one, go back, etc., etc. All right. This is a good time now if you want to watch your favorite Netflix series or a great movie. You can just do this mindlessly for rows on end, and then I'll be back to meet up with you to do some of the final touches on our hood. Okay, so this is what my work looks like at this point. And so I've done 32 rows in total, so you can see it creates this beautiful ridge-like effect. And I did end up adding another 2 inches to my height. So basically from where the collar part starts all the way to the top. So I've got 9 inches. I think that should be good, because if I take this opening, this is where her cute little face is going to come through. So if you're making this for an adult, obviously you're going to perhaps make yours a little bit deeper. And don't be afraid to actually leave a little bit of leeway, but not too much, because the idea is you want this to sit somewhat snugly around the head so that it keeps from any wind or anything like getting through. So we are now ready to seam up the top here. So what you're going to do now is, once you've decided which side you want your right side to be, so for me, I like this little kind of ridge here to be the front as opposed to that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn this so that it's inside out before I begin seaming up the top. And by the way, I did end up having to start a second ball, and this is being done for a toddler. So the stitches are, fairly close together. So it was a good thing that I bought 2 balls. So there you go. Something to always keep in mind. Okay, so it's inside out now. So now what we're going to do is we are going to stitch across here. And what I'm going to show you is, so it's the slip stitch method, but I'm going to show you exactly how I'm going to do mine. So you've got your hook through this loop here. And now what you want to do is we are going to go in through the stitch on this side and the corresponding stitch on that side. And you're going to keep doing that all the way until you get to the crease there. But the special technique I'm going to do, and I'm just going to put this behind here, is that when I'm working with the panel that's closest to me, I'm going to go in through the front loop. Okay, so that's the loop that's closest to you. And then when I find the corresponding one, so this one right here, that's the first stitch, I'm going to go in through the back loop. And then I'm just going to pull through all 3 of these loops, and now you've attached it. Okay, so again, I'm going to go into the next stitch. Now be careful, because remember, there are side loops and there are top loops. So we're using the front top loop, insert, and then we're going to go across the way here and go into the back loop and pull through all 3 of these loops here. And this is basically what you're going to do all the way down. So the front loop of this one, and then the back loop of this one here. Just like that. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple more because I do want you guys to see the effect that this creates. And I find that it makes it look a little bit more seamless. Whoops, I went through the front one of that one. Yeah, so it's the front one here, back one there. So yeah, when you turn your work inside out, it's going to look, in my opinion, much more seamless. It's going to blend in with the other ridge rows. So let me just do a couple more, and that way you get the full effect. Okay, so even here, when we do that, it does blend in a little bit, but you can see it's just created a bit of a raised ridge here, which it's not a big deal for me, but eventually we're going to turn this inside out, and look at that. See, it just blends really nicely in there with the rest of your rows. So these 2 stitches sit together, and it just looks like they belong there. And that's it. So do that all the way to the end. And then there's one more embellishment I'm going to add on to this. So I will see you back here shortly. So I'm just coming up to the crease here. And then basically I'm just going to go in through the last little stitch here and slip stitch. So there'll be kind of 1 stitch left over. So that's where I slip stitched into. And now we're ready to snip our yarn. I just need to grab my scissors. Okay, we're going to snip that there and tie off. And then what you want to do is weave that end in. So now you can really see that it is a proper hood. Look at that. So then when you turn it, so this is what it looks like from the sewn side. And when you turn it right side out, okay, so there's the little peak there. And that's what it looks like. So see how you can barely tell? I mean, if you pull it up close, you can see that these are joined here, but it doesn't pop out. It's not like it's raised. So I really like this method, and it sits so nice and flush. Love it. Okay, so I'm going to add actually 2 more little embellishments here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a very subtle little trim here. Now there's absolutely nothing wrong with leaving this kind of organic edge, but I like to just create a little bit more of an added edge. And that way, if you want to, you can kind of just fold it out like that if you like. And then the other thing I'm going to do is add a pom-pom to the top. And especially since it's for a toddler, I think it's going to add a really nice, sweet little look here. Now, I'm not going to show you how I'm going to do the pom-pom in this video. I have 1, if not 2, actually, videos on how to create a pom-pom. So I am going to leave a link to that in the description box down below, and you can check out how I'm going to make my pom-pom. Now, for this one, in that tutorial, you'll see me wrap yarn around something several times. I'm probably going to do maybe even double the amount of times because I want this pom-pom to sit really nice and cushy. And by the way, if you have a pom-pom maker, then you're good as gold. But I just like to make mine really by hand. So super, super simple. So the link for that is going to be down below. And then right now I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with this little opening here to create a nice little trimmed edge. Okay, so I'm just going to take my yarn and I'm going to find my opening here. And I'm just going to find that first little stitch here. So I'm just going to insert right there. Now what's going to happen here is we're working into the sides of rows again. Remember, we did that once we finished the little collar portion. So it's going to be the same idea. So I'm just going to pull a loop through. Again, I'm not knotting it here because I don't want to have a lot of bulk here. So chain 1, and then I'm going to try to work over this tail. If you want, you can weave in your tail later. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use regular half double crochets, just like we did when we came out of the collar row here. And you're going to work into the dip and the ridge. Okay, so I'm going to yarn over, and see how there's a little gap here? I'm actually going to go just further down and pull up my loop. I keep it nice and relaxed though, and then I pull through all 3. Okay, the next one here, you can see the ridge is raised, so I just go into that one. And that's the beauty of the half double crochet, is that it does create those side loops so it's easy to see. And then next is a valley row here. So then I'm just going to go in through here and working over that tail. So again, ridge row and a valley row. So my goal is to just give it a nice little fortification here, and it just cleans up that edge a little bit, which for me I really like. But like I said, you can leave yours as is because it is still a nice little trim, but I just like to make mine a little bit extra refined here. So you're going to go ahead and do that all the way around, up around, and back to here. Now, if you want, you can do a couple of rows. I'm not sure yet how I feel, but if you're going to repeat, once you get to here, you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and come back around. But I'll let you know how I feel once I get to the end here. Okay, so I am just about coming to the end here, and I've finished kind of my last official row that I can see, like the ridge. And so I've got a little loop here, so I'm just going to do my last one right there, very similar to what I did here. And then I'm just going to go down in through here. We're close to the join, and I'm just going to slip stitch. And that should hopefully make this join a little bit seamless. So I'll snip my yarn and pull that through. So now you can see that starts there and this starts here. And then if I want to, I can just give it a little bit of a fold there. Isn't that nice? So it just, again, cleaned up that edge a little bit there. And I love how lovely it blends in. I really love this colorway, actually. So your cowled hood is done. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to weave in these ends, and then I've got this one over here. I'm going to add my pom-pom, and then I'll be back to show you what the full thing looks like in a couple of different ways that you can wear this. Okay, so I have created my pom-pom, and it's funny because I had wrapped the yarn around a lot, and I still feel like I could have done more because I wanted it to be a little bit denser, but I also didn't want to trim. I guess if I trimmed it down lower, but I didn't want to trim it down too low. I wanted it to be a nice big floppy pom-pom. So it's going to go on like that. So I'm just going to quickly show you how I'm going to put it on. So I've got these two here. And you can do this with a yarn needle or even just a hook if you like. So this is right side facing out, and I'm just going to find this little point here that I want to insert it in. And I'm just going to go maybe on this side here with one of them. And then I'm going to insert the other side just on the other side of a few other loops. So that way it has a reason to stay attached. So I went in there with this one. So I think I'm going to go in through this side with this one. Just like that. Okay. Then you pull it nice and taut. And there you go. So when you pull it out the other side, you see, so there's some loops caught in there. So then I just tie a little knot, and actually a second one. Just like that, making sure that yep, that is so cute. Love it. Now, I will sometimes go and weave this in and out just a couple of times because I'm like that. I need to reinforce and reinforce things. But if you're happy with that, I would even knot it a third time, and then you can snip the yarn a little shorter and then maybe weave in these ends so that you don't have a little nub sticking out there. But essentially, you are complete. So I'll weave that in and after. So here is your cowled hood. See how that all comes together now? So, you know, when it sits on them, you can open it up just like that. Now, I have a funny feeling that this is going to be, well, I don't know. My niece has quite a large head. I always say she's got a lot of brains, that kid. So this may fit her nice and snugly. It may have a little bit of room in here, which actually wouldn't be such a bad idea because, you know, kids grow so quickly that if this would last her this winter and maybe even to the beginning of next winter, I think that would be a really, really good thing. So you see how I can kind of just fold that over, and that looks just like that. And it's got the little pom-pom there. So adorable. I love it. So you can wear it just like this, or you can curl it up if it's a little bit long on the person or the child. And I've also seen some people who turn it in this way, and then they really have, especially actually, if this is a little bit wide or a little bit too long, this is a great way to work with this because then the neck on the inside is a little bit more insulated, and some people like to bring this up over their mouths and their nose so that it covers from any wind getting in. So sometimes you'll see people wearing it this way, and the camera is only so big for me to fit this in, but so just from the side profile. So some people wear it like that, and then it's kind of got this little cowl or scarf built in that way, right? Or you can have it this way, and then this tucks nicely into the coat, again, preventing any wind from getting in. So that's also nice. But again, if you want to have a nice built-in scarf, you can also just fold it up this way and have it covering your face that way. So you can really wear it a couple of different ways. So just like that, right? And just make it work for you. So what'd you think? Did you think that was easier than you thought it might be? Like, I feel like it was super, super easy because you just work in rows. You seam it up and then you work in rows going on the top. And Bob is your uncle. So if you have any detailed questions about this project, please do feel free to leave them for me in the comment box down below. Remember, if you're looking for the tutorial for the pom-pom, that is in the description box down below. And if you don't want a pom-pom, you don't have to add one on. It's just an option. Now, I know some of you like to email me directly, so feel free to do so anytime. email me at info@crochetcrafty.com. And as always, I recommend that you attach a photo of your work so that I can have a closer look at what your situation is and hopefully can better answer your question and help you out. And while you're there, I recommend you stop by and check out the website, crochetcrafty.com. There's a lot of fabulous resource tools there for you. So for example, you found the sizing chart right here, the hat sizing chart we had for you. That's on there. There's a lot of sizing charts for garments and mitts and things like that. So make sure to check out the website for that as well. There's some free written patterns on there. And this year I'm getting right back into uploading a lot more patterns onto the website. So stay tuned for that. There's also a link to my Etsy shop as well. And as always, come say hi to me. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at The Stitch Sessions. So what'd you guys think? I hope you had a great time for your first Hats All Folks project. This is for the month of January. And next week, we'll have some other fun tutorials for you for the rest of the month. And then, we just continue on from there. Then we have February, March, and et cetera, more fun hat projects for you guys. All right, guys, that's it for this week's session. Happy crocheting. Take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.